25 years ago, the ATF raided a compound outside of Waco, Texas. Inside were many families, a community that called themselves the Branch-Davidians. They were apocalyptic Protestants, weird Adventists, an offshoot of American brand Christianity. Yet my theological disagreements with the cult aren't a priority here. All one needs to know is that David Koresh and his group had simply created a close-knit community and had stockpiled what they needed in case their concerns turned out to be true, in case the world did come to, say, an end. And nowadays we are intrigued by doomsday preppers, to the point where reality TV has made shows out of them. Very few see these people as a threat, and for good reason. There really is no harm in a family or a community having an emergency plan in case things go real bad. If anything, preparing for such an event, in my opinion, should almost be an obligation for a household, for a community. Yet that was the Branch-Davidians' crime, living on the fringe of society, ready in case that society fell apart. Even still, plenty of them worked in Waco, Texas. Plenty of them were just as much citizens in that town as they were at their home compound. But the ATF wanted to play soldier. They came with lots of armed agents clad in Kevlar. They had a plan drawn up by local special forces. They must have been expecting heavy resistance. They were treating the Branch-Davidians like a domestic terrorist cell. However, they were only there to go through with a warrant based on unfounded allegations. The agency responsible for alcohol, tobacco, and firearms included child abuse as part of their reason to search the compound and arrest Koresh. Yet this allegation was considered false by local law enforcement, which had already investigated it. Now, the other allegation did fall under their jurisdiction. It was about a supposed stockpile of fully automatic weapons, of semi-autos being illegally modified for fully automatic fire. This came from a report that full auto fire was being heard from the compound. Yet bump stocks as we know them today and Hellfire triggers, which Koresh owned, are able to make semi-autos sound like full autos. These completely legal mechanisms allow very fast fire rates, yet they don't truly simulate full auto fire. Either way, I personally disagree with the ban on full auto weapons, so to me, this is always a bogus reason to go after people. The other so-called evidence that they had these full autos was a report that described the Branch-Davidians converting their semi-automatic rifles, yet the guy gets a very important detail about AK-47s wrong.
The affidavit describes how an undercover agent had observed the upper and lower receivers of disassembled AK-47s. The AK-47 has a one-piece receiver. There are no separate upper and lower receivers on an AK-47. Obviously, Agent Aguilera didn't have a clue, and Magistrate Green failed to notice.
The point being is that the reasons the ATF had for raiding the compound were basically bogus or very shoddy. Yet the big problem is not that the ATF had a warrant, but just how they executed it. They must have known the claims were bogus. Because when Koresh came to the door, as his community was surrounded by soldiers, he requested that they didn't fire, as the place was full of women and children. It wasn't some huge set of barracks for armed fighters, but a home of families. His plea was met with gunfire. Clearly, the ATF wasn't there to ask questions or to actually search the place. They were there to start a battle. They were there to incite something. And they got what they wanted because the people there did what anyone would do when their home comes under attack. They defended their lives. At the same time, they also dialed 911. They wanted this whole thing called off, is what they said on the phone. They didn't want a gunfight with the government. Who does? Koresh's call to the police, and this is an important detail, was supposedly recorded at the police station, yet you can hear him dialing the number on the release tape. It was recorded through an illegal wiretap on David's phone, not at the police station. This is one of many laws that the alphabet agencies broke during the Waco siege. Now, a firefight ensued, and 4 ATF agents lost their lives. 5 Branch-Davidians ended up dead as well. Now, the soldiers in ballistic armor, they retreated at this point from the engagement, claiming they had been outgunned, even as they had seemingly armed helicopters circling the building. Now, it didn't matter if the initial claims were bogus. 4 agents were dead. The compound could be besieged, their crime being so-called murder. Yet Texas law made the Branch-Davidians' actions legal. For a citizen can respond with lethal force when an officer uses unnecessary lethal force. Like many laws, the alphabet agencies disregarded this. And on the same day as the gun battle, they shot and killed Michael Schroeder, who was trying to get back home. He just wanted to return to his wife and kid. So let's summarize. The ATF's allegations, their warrant, was basically bogus. It was very shoddy. They didn't really have a reason to be there in the first place. Yet the main crime is how they executed it. They went in military style. The Branch-Davidians had no opportunity to comply. They were incited immediately into a gunfight, into an engagement. Because of the deaths of those 4 ATF agents, it no longer mattered if the Branch-Davidians actually had fully automatic weapons, if there was actual child abuse going on, if any of the claims were true. It didn't matter anymore. Now the ATF had a reason to stay. They had a reason to go further. They had a reason to besiege. 4 of their agents were dead. Yet even the claim of murder, as we can see, does not compute with Texas law. For when an officer comes at you with lethal force for no reason, for an unnecessary reason, when an officer is out of line, when law enforcement tries to kill you for no good reason, you are able to defend your life. You have that right to self-defense, specifically in Texas. But the alphabet agencies weren't playing by the book at WACO. They wanted to take care of this compound, and that's what they did. They wanted to play soldier, too. They wanted to use all their cool toys and gadgets, their surveillance equipment, which they used extensively at WACO during the siege. They experimented with psychological warfare, really. They would keep everybody up at night with spotlight, playing chants from Tibet, playing the sounds of rabbits being slaughtered at the middle of the night to keep these families awake, to keep them restless. So for almost 2 months after this initial engagement, where they took a bogus claim and they made it into what seemed to be a legitimate reason to stay there, to take action, the siege came to an end, a fiery end. They brought in tanks. They were supposedly deploying tear gas. Nope, they deployed CS gas, which is even worse than tear gas. CS gas, we're not even allowed to use it in war. It's not allowed, it's outlawed. Yet here CS gas was being deployed against a compound full of women and children. Women and children that the media campaign said that the ATF, the FBI, everybody there was there to save those women and children. Yet at the end of the day, at the end of that siege, the ruins were full of charred corpses of women and children. 79 dead. What really happened there is that they deployed CS gas, they started fires, they burnt the whole thing down. They destroyed all the evidence at the crime scene very quickly. Now when it comes to the controversy of who started the fire, at the end of the day, though I believe the ATF started the fire, they deployed CS gas. That's something that they admitted to, which is completely wrong. CS gas is not even meant to be used indoors. Plus, the fire, the whole situation would have never occurred if the ATF had not committed the first crime of an unjust raid, an incitement of an unjust firefight with the Branch-Davidians, with the compound. Had they executed the search warrant like law enforcement, like police, like a federal agency ought to, none of it would have happened in the first place. So while we can debate and we can discuss what really happened when the siege came to a close, remember that those 79 people in the compound would have never died had it not been for that shoddy, bogus warrant and its poor military-style, special forces-style execution. And it's the same with those 4 ATF agents. They would have still been alive had it not been for the ATF deciding to play soldier instead of police. Now, I don't claim to be an expert, so in the description of this video, there's plenty of links to documentaries here on YouTube about WACO that show the other side of the story, that show that the ATF was not justified to be there, that laws were broken by our government. But at the end of the day, what really happened? They caught some flack from the media. People did wise up, but nowadays we seem to forget about WACO. We seem to forget about this event. This atrocity has kind of been wiped from the public consciousness. What it does is it aids in their revelation of the method, which is showing us quite clearly, allowing us to know that they can do these things that are against our laws, that are against the norm, that are wrong, that are unjustified, and yet they are almost invincible. They can get away with it By knowing that, and knowing that nothing ever happens as information is released, as their crimes are exposed, they seem invincible. A few convenient details before we close off. Out of the 4 ATF agents who died, 3 of them were Bill Clinton's former bodyguards. Now, isn't that interesting? Also, one of the snipers present at WACO was present at Ruby Ridge, which occurred before, and that sniper killed Vicki Weaver, killed an unarmed mother, shooting her through a door. Yet he was allowed to set up shop at WACO. Thank you for watching. Check the description, and God bless all of you.